I guess we're on our next episode. Brian, I am a simple man. I am too. I can very much resonate with this question already. I don't like having a lot of complex things in my life. Every time I sign up for a new website or app, I know I should be using a new password, but I just don't because I can't be bothered with that annoyance. Do you have any tips or tricks on ways to stay more secure or at least less inconvenienced? I very much value a simple life. I do too. So, passwords are complex. They're annoying. They're tedious. You're supposed to use a lowercase letter, an uppercase letter, a number, a symbol. You shouldn't be using easy to guess words. You shouldn't be able to guess or use phrases or things that have anything to do with, your life. Like if I can look up and guess your password from your Facebook profile, that's a really bad password. So there's a lot of things, and I could go on for hours about this. I don't want to go on for hours. I want to try to give you a very quick answer to this. So yes, you should be using different passwords. This can get tough because, well, I have probably close to 100 accounts, and you know what? I'm going to be honest. I do use some of the same passwords for those. I kind of have like a three-tier system. I have my ultra secure passwords for important things like banking, shopping, credit cards, retirement account, all those different things. I have some semi serious accounts for things like, specific accounts that I wouldn't be devastated if they were compromised, but I also would be very inconvenienced. And I also have my junk accounts. So for my junk accounts, I use one password for all of them. And if you compromise the account that I made for a message forum to ask one question, and you're going to jump into my account and, post silly things or dumb questions or something, I don't really care because that account is long gone. I haven't even signed into it in months. But for my middle range accounts and my ultra secure accounts, I kind of use this weird system. What I do is I build my password based off the name of the site or the service or the app that I'm using. So let's use Facebook, for example. I don't really use Facebook anymore, but let's say my password is ABC123. A very horrible password you should never be using, but we're going to use that as just like a simple, system for this. So if I'm signing into Facebook, I know Facebook begins with an F and ends with a K. So I could take those two letters and place them somewhere into my password. So instead of ABC123, it could be AFBKC123, and the F and the K found their ways into the found their ways into that password. And now, unless two of these apps begin and end with the same letters, I'm kind of good. It's not going to be a huge problem. So now I just have to remember the rule, ABC123, and then the two letters get injected between the A and the B and the B and the C. You don't have to use those exact letters. You could take Facebook, well, it starts with an F. What if I bumped it forward a letter to the letter G, and then I took K and I reversed it a letter, so I got to the letter I. So now it would be AGBIC123. No one's going to look at that and be like, oh, that came from the F and the K from Facebook, so that's clearly what the password is. So you can kind of address these different types of security into it. You can get as wild as you like. You can get as more secure as you like with that as well. You could build something based on the entire name. You could build it off the number of letters in the name. You could have a chart at home that has, each website with a number of how many letters you shift each of them. There are so many different things that you could do to make sure that your passwords are secure to some degree. The second thing that I'd like to bring up is, the idea of those password management systems. I'm not entirely against them. I am skeptical of them, but again, maybe you just want to use them for, your different type of your different types of use. If you have your kind of casual stuff, you could use a password manager and just make life that much easier. Google and Apple, they also have a password sign-in feature that works great. I mean, why wouldn't you use it? They work wonderful. So again, it's you want to figure out where on the spectrum in terms of ultra high-end security versus ultra low-end security, where you want to stand. The further on low end of security, the more convenient your life is. And the further out, the more complex and, annoying it may be to manage these things. Some other things that I'm going to recommend is if you can enable two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is wonderful because now what happens is they'll have to text you or email you, or you can have an app on your phone that generates an additional password that you didn't have to invent. It usually is like a 6-digit code that updates every 30 seconds or so. So when they send it to you or you generate it, you sign in, you have to add an additional factor of the certification. And that really, sorry, not certification, verification. That is a huge factor in this because now you could actually give your password to a bunch of people, and unless they have access to your phone or your email address or your generating system of each of your codes, they're not getting in. So it's just an additional degree. And then finally, one last thing that I wanted to touch base on in terms of advice is make separate email accounts for your serious accounts and your fun accounts. You can have 2 different email accounts, and with Google or any other sites, you can usually kind of connect them so you can switch back and forth between each one. But the security that offers is if your fun email account gets compromised or something like that, who cares? But if your serious one does, you at least know that these are your serious things that you need to manage. And again, security falls with those as well. You could have a very simple email account for fun stuff, and you could have your very serious account, which is on ultra secure lockdown, so that you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a little bit of convenience for stuff that you casually use, and you have the serious aspects for other pieces. Security is a spectrum. There's no such thing as perfectly secure, and the more secure you get, though, the more sacrifices of convenience you have to throw away. So being a simple person, it gets a little tough. This is the one field that I kind of take seriously with my, life, my digital life. I like simplicity. I like easy, fun things that, make life super smooth. But yeah. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is why you shouldn't use the same password everywhere. So this is where things get really interesting. I'm going to give you just a basic scenario to kind of show you why you shouldn't use just the same password on every single application or site. Let's say you sign up for a brand new site that didn't take security too seriously. Your friend made an app, your friend made a website, you found this cool site that solves a weird problem that you need to have solved. So you sign up and you make an account. Now, when you establish your password, if the site doesn't do good security, or the app or whatever, they're going to store your password in something called plain text, which is basically readable text. So if somebody hacks into their servers or their system and actually is able to steal the whole list of usernames and passwords, they have your password. A sophisticated or a sufficiently secured site will do something called encryption, or they will use another method where they don't actually store your password in plain visible text. They actually store it in kind of like a jumbled up way, or in a way that they can store a result of your password after doing a mathematical calculation on it. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but the idea is on a sufficiently secure site, if somebody steals their whole database, they can't really do much with it because they can't read the passwords. They can't open up, Notepad or Microsoft Word to try to read them as you would normally on a computer. You'd actually have to have further developed secrets from the site on how they kind of encrypted or kind of protected their passwords. It's kind of like if you password protect a phone, you encrypt it like an iPhone, so nobody can just plug it in and just browse through the files and look at everything. It's completely locked down. So same idea with passwords. So if a site or a website or an app or whatever you're dealing with happens to not have the password stored sufficiently, and they're just storing it in plain text, if I go in and I steal your password, well, the chances are you used an email address to sign up with it. And if you were carefree enough to use the same password on the site as your email address, I'm going to now go to your email client, log in with that password, and maybe I'll get in. Now, I have access to your banking, your checking account, your Amazon store, your credit cards, your mortgage, all these different things that are important, your student loan portal, all these things I now have access to because all I have to do is take your email, search for anything inside of your email that seems relevant to finance information, and just go log in. And if you used a different password at that point, I can just do a password reset and have it sent. And I've already got you locked out of your own email address, so you're not even going to know that this is happening. So I don't mean to scare you, but I did want to bring this up as kind of a thing to be cautious for. So at the very least, you should at least add one letter to the end of each of your passwords or somewhere inside of it that represents the app or the site or the membership or whatever it is you've joined that's based on it. It could be the third letter, the fifth letter, the last letter, the third from the end. It could be anything that you want to do, but your password should not be the same. It's not that much more difficult to remember 2 rules instead of just one single password for everything. So hopefully this helped. I really, really encourage you to do some digital well-being checkups and look to see where your passwords lie and what you need to change. But again, if you can't be bothered to manage all these things, it's too much, it intimidates you, check out those password management systems. Like I think it's LastPass, and there's a few others. I'll leave them in the description if I can think of any more. So thanks for asking. I hope this helped. I may have struck a little bit of panic into your digital life, but I think it's appropriate at this point. So best of luck and keep me updated.